Hey guys, how are you all today? We've got blazing sunshine again, so sorry my face is in shade. Well, I'm not sorry it's in shade, I'm looking after my face. I've got loads to do, but it's really too hot to be doing anything too, what's the word, physical. So I'm getting on with a long overdue job of breaking out my poor brassicas. A job I should have done about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And actually, there are a couple of things which I've sort of let slip in the last couple of weeks. And it got me thinking, I've got my thinking cap on, not just about me being a bit behind, but about the questions you guys send. So not just via the YouTube channel, but you know, on my Facebook page and my web page. So my thinking today is all about having a productive garden. Now, as I always say, I'm not an expert, I'm not a horticulturalist, I'm not some kind of gardening guru, I'm just a really happy veg grower. And I think one of the beautiful things in life is that we learn from each other. So if I make a mistake, I'm going to share it with you guys so that hopefully that means you avoid it. Oh, my hair's tickling. But basically this little thinking session with you guys is going to be more for those of you who are really new to this or thinking about starting a vegetable garden, haven't done it before. So yeah, I'm going to start pricking as I chat. So I can't actually, I'm going to get too distracted. 2 questions, the 2 most frequent questions I get asked. What should I grow? How many should I grow? So to answer the first, I would say quite simply, what do you like to eat? You know, if you don't like tomatoes, or even worse if you're allergic to them, oh I can't imagine that, then why would you grow them? So maybe sit down with a pencil and paper, think about and make a list of all the veg you love to eat. You could even, if it helps to prompt you, maybe go around the supermarket and have a look at all those things you like to eat. If you're a family, obviously there's going to be some differences, you know, one likes sprouts, the other doesn't, like my sister. And actually, if you go and do it at the supermarket as well, you can at the same time think about prices. So I would always say, think about what you like to eat, then you'll have a list, you know, miles long. And you probably won't have the space to grow everything you like to eat. So then you could maybe think about what stuff is expensive to buy. So for instance, I grow lots of squash because they can be really expensive in the shops. I grow fennel for the bulb, because again, really expensive in the shops. Now I also grow onions, which can be dirt cheap in the shops, but I grow organically. I like to know where my food has come. I grow a bit of everything because I want to know where it's come from and what it's gone through, and I just don't want to buy anything. So for me, onions are always going to be part of the plot because they're so often the base of nearly everything I cook. So yeah, have a think about what you like to eat, what costs a lot in the shops, and then, you know, most veg are relatively easy to grow, but if you know, maybe get to the library and have a look at a couple of books, and you'll get an idea, you know, from sort of the pest and diseases section, this, that and the other, whether it's going to be something that's easy to grow. Also think about where you're going to grow it. So for instance, I don't have a greenhouse, so all of the varieties I choose have to be outdoor varieties. That also means that I have to start some of my seeds at home. Now, if you don't have a greenhouse and you choose all the veg you want to grow has to be started in February or March, you're going to have to be doing that at home. So just think about the space you've got at home as well. So as to the question of how many, that is something I've only kind of discovered over time. So I think the best thing to do is kind of share how I've developed my plot to the stage where I've had it now 4 years, I'm just coming into my 5th year, how I've got it to the stage where it is pretty much feeding me. So yeah, in that first year in 2013, and I think this is going to be the case for most of you who get a new plot or who've got a garden and you decide to make a vegetable patch. Literally in that first year, all you want to do is get some soil ready. So digging out weeds, grass, brambles, whatever it is, you want to get that soil ready and just get something shoved in the ground. And brilliant! And you will not believe the joy you get from eating your own tomato for the first time. There's nothing like it. So yeah, that first year it was just a case of get the ground turned over, try and dig out the perennial weeds, and just get something growing. But what I did that first year as well, because I'm a bit of a nerd, but I think it's a really useful tool, and I know a lot of my other gardening friends who are sort of into their 4th or 5th year, or some who've been doing it for years, do this, is to keep a notebook, to have a notebook. So what I did that first year was, the notes were quite simple. They've got a little bit more convoluted as time's gone on, but not so much so that I'm stressing about it. I don't stay up till 2 in the morning doing my notes. I make a note of the date that I sow something. I make a note of how many I've sown, not for the little things like, say, carrots and parsnips, where you're sowing teeny tiny seeds, maybe 50 in a row, who knows, but the bigger things like beans, tomatoes, squash, that sort of thing. So I made a note of when I sowed it, how many I sowed, how many germinated, and when they went into open ground, or if they were direct sown. And then as the year went on, if I lost, so in that first year I lost a load of squash to slug damage, I made a note and thought, right, okay, they seem to be particularly susceptible, that's where I need to focus my beer traps. And then as I was doing all my harvests, I was having a weigh of everything. So at that stage it was just kind of like the novelty of, oh look, I've got 2 pounds of tomatoes or whatever. But then going into the second year, looking back on the notes from the first year, and this is coming back to that question of how many to grow, when I came to the second year, I thought, oh, I loved the tomatoes, I didn't have enough. Cat's just jumped up on the table, she's determined to get some attention. I realised, I thought, oh, I would have liked more tomatoes. They were all used up by November, December, what have you, that sort of thing. So look at the notes from the first year, and I thought, well, I grew 10 plants, I'll grow 15 this year. So gradually over the 3 years, that's how I've worked out for me how many I need to grow. Now, it's going to be different if you've got a half plot like I have and you're trying to feed 4 people. I honestly don't see how you could make that work to be self-sufficient in veggies for 4 people. But you may, if you keep your notes, you may think, well, actually, tomatoes do really well for us here. I keep talking about tomatoes, I'm obsessed. The tomatoes do really well for us here. The whole family love them. Yeah, we'll do loads more next year. We'll do less peas because we didn't get very many. That sort of thing. So, yeah, that's kind of going into the second year. The consideration was I want to do a few more. Also, keeping notes about the germination rate helped, because if I sowed 10 seeds wanting 10 plants, at the end of that first year I realised actually I maybe got 5 plants, maybe 7 germinated, 2 were weak, 5 were good plants, it made me think, ah, okay, I maybe need to sow 20% extra next year. And that's also lovely, because then if they all come up, you can do swapsies. So if you're on a communal site like this, it's really nice to be able to swap your seedlings with someone else, and that's going to help bolster what you can grow too. And if it's just you and your back garden, you could maybe put your spares out on a table out front and have an honesty box and ask people to make a donation, and you can either use it for more seed or give it to your favourite charity or something. So, what to grow, how many? I think that's the main considerations. I think also what's happened for me is I've become more obsessed with growing on my own and feeding myself. Is I then start to think about, how will I store things? How is this garden going to work for a whole year? So I see lots of folk around here with masses of courgette plants. They get way more courgettes than they can manage, and then they don't store very well, they don't freeze very well. If you cook them up into, say, a ratatouille, that's okay, but you can end up with a whole bed with masses of a vegetable in it, which you can't possibly eat all on your own. They're not very easy to store, so you end up giving them away. And it's lovely to give things away, but if you're trying to live by your plot, the last thing you want to be doing is giving your veggies away. So that's another thing as time has gone on, is I've thought about how do things store? Are they going to store well? But not just that. Oh, we've got visitors. I'm going to pop off for a second and then come back. And we're back. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't want to be accidentally filming someone without their permission. So yeah, just talking about what to grow what you like to eat, and maybe focus on the stuff that's expensive to buy. How many? You'll only work that out over time, so your family's needs. Storage, if like the courgettes, if you grow masses and masses of lettuce but you don't eat much, again, it's something that doesn't store very well. In fact, I don't know a way to store it. Now the other thing, and this is where I get super nerdy, is I think it's not a mistake, but I think what happens to most folk in their first year, and it certainly happened to me, is that sort of March and April you get really giddy, you plant the whole plot up, it's growing, it's wonderful, and it really is. And then, the first things you start to harvest in the end of June, what have you. But then for most of us, and as I say, it happened to me, by October, you finished harvesting and suddenly the plot is completely empty and bare. So, nerd alert. One of the best bits of advice I can give you is, it's like notebook, calendar, seed packet time. Think about things that will grow over winter. So parsnips, carrots, all the different brassicas, broccoli, purple sprouting, all the different kales, all those wonderful winter veggies. Then, working back in your head, think about when they need to be sown. Have a little plan of your allotment. Think about when something is going to finish in summer so it can come out, and then winter stuff go in. So one of the things I do every year in sort of January, February, in those horrible bleak winter evenings when you can't get to the garden because it's dark and you're just dying to get growing for another year, I sit down with all my seeds and my notebook and my calendar, and I write out approximately a sort of sowing timetable of when I need to get things sown by. Then with my plot plan, I work out where everything's going to go. I tend to have beds of families of veg, that helps. And then with my seed packets, I literally have them in envelopes sorted according to the month they need to be sown. So that sort of as I get to the end of one month and I'm going into the next, I look at my little calendar, look at my seed packets, and I look at my schedule and I think, right, X, Y and Z need to go in. I'm working Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. I've got to visit with relatives on Friday and Saturday. So either Tuesday or Sunday, they're my only 3 days. Right, that's garden days. So it does seem a bit, I think it can seem a bit daunting, just getting your head around like sowing days, planting out days, that sort of thing. But you know what, it's not really. And we all have disasters. We all have that thing of we've sown too much of one thing, not enough of another. But it's the joy of it, it's the joy of experimenting. And if you are on an allotment site, get to know your neighbours. They're the best sources of advice possible because, you know, all our sites will have slightly different soils, slightly different microclimates. But yeah, it is possible just about on half a plot to keep going for the whole year. So I hope that you guys who've just got your allotments this year, or maybe even last year, or just starting to develop a veggie patch in your own garden, I hope some of this is useful. The main thing is to just have a go and, you know, cry a bit if the slugs take all your beans, if the wind blows down all your tomatoes. But the main thing is just enjoy every single little fresh bite you get. It really is, I think, one of the most rewarding things we can do for ourselves is to grow our own food. I wish that everybody could have an allotment or a garden. I think that should be a law. Everyone gets a plot. But in the meantime, get out there, have a go, keep some notes. Honestly, I really think it helps. Keep a few notes, keep a notebook in the shed maybe. Have a go this year. Don't be too disheartened by disasters or mistakes. Use them to learn from. As I say, that's how I'm at this stage this year, is every little boo-hoo moment I've had has made me kind of rethink things, think again, think, I'll do it differently. And you do get there in the end. And you know, the other thing is, there are people on this site who've been doing it for 25 years and they still make mistakes and have disasters. So what we'll say from now on is there's no mistakes, there's no disasters, there's just learning opportunities. It's boiling hot, but I want to race off into the garden now and play. So I will see you guys again really soon, I hope. In the meantime, happy planning, happy note making, happy plotting. I will say cheerio, see you again soon, and all of you take care and have a blast in the garden.